Hello. Here I'm going to be discussing Harold Lloyd, and I'm going to be considering whether the narrative approaches of his films create a formulaic approach to silent comedy. Now, Harold Lloyd, he's up there with the other great silent clowns, Chaplin, Keaton, Laurel and Hardy. But he is typically associated with one image and one film in particular. Safety Last. Let's have a look. Stakes are high in Safety Last, and this particular type of scenario, and in particular Safety Last itself, was the film whenever you bring up Harold Lloyd, this is the film that jumps into your mind. This is the film that always comes up first. It always gets talked about. However, for the time being, let's put Safety Last aside and focus on Harold Lloyd's broader spectrum of work. And let's start with his screen persona, which he always referred to as the glass character. As Jeffrey Vance has commented, and I quote, "Chaplin and Keaton persevere because their characters are aspirational, yet this quality paradoxically also makes them remote. No matter how hard we try, we will never be as clever and as resourceful as Chaplin's little tramp, nor will he ever approach impending disaster with Keaton's stoic reserve. Ultimately, we embrace Harold Lloyd because he is one of us, an ordinary fellow dealing with ordinary struggles, losses, and embarrassments." The glass character is very much more so realistic and grounded to what the viewers would have been able to identify back then, and certainly can still identify with today. Opposed to the personas of the other comics, Harold Lloyd was very much the everyman, the everyman go-getter that we could all identify with. He struggled with the same embarrassment, the same struggles, and ultimately overcame them with the same resolve that we do in real life. So ultimately, this is one thing that sets him apart from the other comics, the fact that he is closer to reality and more based in reality. And indeed, his character is someone you can imagine meeting realistically on your way down the street. You can't imagine meeting Chaplin's tramp or Keaton's stone face, stoic character. Although if you were to go to Hollywood today, you'd certainly meet some lookalikes. But anyway, let's move on. So, the glass character, while the physical exterior and iconic horn-rimmed glasses were always the same, the psychological interior of the glass character changes from one film to the next. He's never quite the same character from film to film. Lloyd was always tweaking with it. And I quote, "I changed the attitude of my character in practically every different picture. One time he could be an introvert, he could be just a normal boy, he could be very shy, or he could be exceedingly brash." Harold Lloyd is not a comedian, but he was the best actor to act the part of a comedian. His friend and quite a famous Hollywood producer, Hal Roach, made this comment, and indeed it is true. Lloyd had a versatility as an actor that extended far beyond his abilities as a physical and visual comedian. unlike Chaplin's over-sentimentality or Keaton's constant deadpan or Laurel and Hardy's general knockabout, Lloyd was able to inject a vast range of grounded performances into his films. He was much more so an actor playing the comedian. He wasn't just the comedian. And now, moving back, like I said before, moving away from Safety Last, let's have a look at a slightly different manifestation of Lloyd's Glass character. Not so much as the strong, I'm going to overcome this no matter what the obstacle is, hard character. This is a much different character to that. Still the same exterior, but different psychological motivations and shortcomings. So let's have a look. Okay, so Lloyd maintained that he made two types of films: the gag picture, which Safety Last is a prime example of, and the character picture, which Girlshine is a prime example of. These two films have very different narrative styles. Gag film, you get a narrative which is assembled around and focused purely on comedy and the comedy routines therein. Whereas with the character film, you get a narrative which still has elements of comedy but is far more serious in tone and wholly based around the Glass character's growth and development throughout the film. And in fact, it's in the character films that Lloyd's versatility as an actor becomes evident. But there is another banner under which we can place at least 5 of his films. The Thrill picture, which, again, Safety Last is a prime example of. But as Jeffrey Vance has commented, and I quote, "The Thrill picture is a film in which comedy at its most inspired and suspense at its most excruciating are ingeniously interwoven to perfection." As you can see from the pictures on this slide, the Thrill pictures generally concerned Lloyd hanging off the side of a building in mortal danger. And his Thrill pictures introduced a new formula of extreme danger comedy, which became instantly popular and which the other comics absorbed into their own films. So here we have Buster Keaton in Our Hospitality. Here we have Charlie Chaplin in The Circus. And last but no means least, Laurel and Hardy in Liberty. So, going back to the original question, do the narrative approaches of Harold Lloyd create a formulaic approach to silent comedy? I'm going to conclude that Lloyd's narrative approaches have produced 3 formulaic approaches. The gag formula. Building on his earlier experience in slapstick knockabout comedy, Lloyd constructs more intricate comedy routines. In his films, one comedy routine leads into another, but these films have very basic storylines. The character formula. After being inspired by Chaplin's The Kid, Lloyd exploits his vast acting range and injects more character and narrative complexity into his films. And finally, the thrill formula. He discovers a niche in the comedy genre that the other comics have missed and really starts to make a name for himself because of it. And indeed, the comics would soon start to imitate him, as I've already pointed out. But the thrill formula is most important in regards to the formulaic approach because it has the biggest impact on Lloyd's lasting image and cinematic influence. The thrill formula, as Vance again says, despite the fact that Harold made only 5 thrill pictures in a career that encompassed over 200 films, he is often thought as a thrill comedian. This characterization upset Harold, who rightfully thought himself more versatile than that reductive label suggests. However, Harold Lloyd understood that he was best known for his thrill comedy because he did it better than anyone else. So, while Lloyd should be praised for his brilliantly thought out comedy routines and his wide range of performances as the Glass character, ultimately, the one formula that he will always be remembered for, because it had the biggest influence on the comedy genre, is the thrill formula. It will always be considered his biggest formulaic approach and contribution to silent comedy. And it's a shame, considering all the other good material he produced, but he'll always be remembered for hanging off the side of a building. These are my sources for the research for this presentation. Thank you for your time.